So Q put together this beautiful big PDF spreadsheet of all of the answers from our panelists and all the detail and all of that stuff. So because you did all the work, my friend, I'm going to let you steer the conversation here today. But I've got the notes up in front of me as well. I mean, this really was super duper fascinating. And our boy Skokes here in the comments. We appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for joining us again. Let's start.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how
So
what did you think of the experiment as a whole, Q? Like that's what I really want to know.
I thought it was awesome. I mean, so one of the things I was really worried about with this, like the only thing I was worried about with it was redundancy, right? The same answers, the same explanations. And it was, while we got some of the same answers, the explanations were all different, which is what we were looking for, right? We wanted to see different perspectives and how you reach these conclusions that to the questions that we were asking. And I thought we really got that. We got, multiple people might have said they're the thing they're most worried about is offensive line or defensive line, but the explanation was different in each one, which was really cool to see and really, really cool to hear. And so my thoughts with today's show is we'd run through each question, kind of compare some of the answers and give our thoughts on it and what we think.
Love
so opening it up with the state of the Bears question, and I'll read off the questions so that anyone who hasn't listened to the previous ones will have a baseline of what we're working with. Absolutely. It was simple. What do you see the state of the Bears as being? Like, where are they sitting to you? So the first response we got feels good. Still a work in process or work in progress, however you want to say it. But they're sitting in a really good spot after essentially taking their salary cap medicine and being like getting almost a reset on everything after leaving the Ryan Pace era. And second response, very similar. Things are looking up, and that we expect the Bears to be competitive. Not great. They're still missing high-end talent, but competitive. They have built a base for this team. And it continued with Skokes. Loves how Poles has approached it, ripping it down to the studs and trying to build up through the draft and through smart investments, which, again, it all kind of fits the same idea. And then Brandon Robinson, his was a little different. It would still feel really good about the spot they're in, but he sees it as this is the start of the rebuild. This is where we are right now. Previously wasn't the start. It was the ground zero. So now it's like the studs are up and the rebuild really starts and you start to form this thing. And his take was kind of, tempered expectations more for this year, but very excited for what the future brings. So what do you think, Ron? What do you see the state of the Bears as being?
It for sake of the show, you want to say, oh, I feel differently than all of our guests, but I don't. Because I think everybody was really spot on. And like you said, everybody answered in a different way, but ultimately got to kind of the same, I guess, theme. And that is this Bears team is on the up, right? This team is not in a spot where we're looking at another 3-14 season and the number one overall pick again. They just aren't. They should take a step forward. And there are a lot of ifs, right? I mean, there's a lot of ifs in terms of health of the roster. There's a lot of ifs of do your top playmakers truly perform like top playmakers? Your DJ Moores of the world. Obviously, Justin Fields is probably the largest what if of the 2023 season. And even looking on the defensive side of the ball, do your linebackers live up to the investment, right? You mentioned that word investment, that smart investment. Do those guys live up to the some of the hype? Does the secondary continue to develop and improve? Mostly for the younger guys, right? The Jalen Johnsons, the Jaquan Briskers, now the Tyreek Stevensons of the world, and even the Kyler Gordons, second-year player now coming into this year. But you're starting to see just so much more talent than I think we've seen really in a couple of seasons. This is probably the most talented Bears team we've seen probably since 2018. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. They're not overpaying guys anymore to fill roles that they realistically can't fill. I think, like you said, that smart investment is such a key word, I think, in what they're doing right now and why they're on the up. Because if you look at the top paid guys on this team right now, they're young, They're probably going to get better than they are right now. And they fill kind of marquee spots for what this team wants to do. Middle linebacker, you know, it's obviously safety with a guy like Eddie Jackson. DJ Moore is your top receiver. So I agree with our guests in the sense this team's on the up, but there are still a lot of what ifs to this season. Like, if the what ifs go well, this could be a 10-win ball club this year. You know, stupider shit has happened in the NFL. We've seen it. But there's also a world where the what ifs don't go well, and maybe this team does only win, 6 or 7 games realistically over the course of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally kind of in consensus with what we heard from everyone else and what you said. There's real reason to be optimistic right now about the Bears and where they're headed, but there's just a pause in my brain of like, how optimistic? It's like, I can be really optimistic for 2-3 years down the road when, everything is always butterflies 2-3 years down the road for every NFL team, though, right? Everything's always rainbows and beautiful. But the Bears have put themselves in a position to be really competitive in free agency, in making moves, in acquisitions, and in draft capital, which is just really cool to see. I think one of my favorite things that was said through this whole series was on that last episode with Brandon Robinson, on another question even, but it was GMs always get applauded for making moves. They never get applauded for not making moves, and sometimes not making a move is the smarter decision.
Mm-hmm.
So while I do have some skepticism left in my head of like, is Poles ever going to pull the trigger? He started to chip away at that with the number 1 pick trade because I thought he played that perfectly and like he pulled the trigger right when he should have. But the more moves he makes like that are calculated and feel just right, the more I start to believe like this isn't a guy who's scared to pull the trigger. This is a guy who knows exactly when he should, gaining that trust.